Now, today is International Youth Day. However, millions of young people in South Africa are challenged by both unemployment and poverty.
The ailing economy and the rising cost of living continues to be a major concern. Some experts are warning the country is at risk of becoming a failed state.
The latest crime stats paint a grim picture.
The backdrop is a continuing theme of corruption, enrolling blackouts, water shortages, a shaky healthcare system, and myriad other state failures. Others say this is the cost of corruption and negligent leadership. Speak now to research.
So, Herman Mashaba is the leader and founder of ActionSA, one of the newer parties contesting the national elections in 2024. Before entering politics, he was an entrepreneur. He started his hair product business, Black Like Me, in 1985. Against the backdrop of apartheid, he managed to turn his company into the biggest hair products business in South Africa. In 2016, he contested the local elections in Johannesburg as the mayoral candidate for the DA. He managed to win the election and served as mayor of Joburg from 2016 to 2019, after which he resigned from both his position and the DA. However, he did not leave the political space at that point. After the People's Dialogue, a campaign to engage with South Africans on important political issues, he re-entered the fray by starting ActionSA in August of 2020. I'm privileged to have the opportunity to talk to him today about what his party is offering voters come 2024. Hello, Mr. Mashaba. How are you doing today?
Hi, Gabriel. Thank you very much. Great opportunity. Lovely talking to you.
So, Mr. Mashaba, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small village called Haramutsi, 30-40 k's north of Pretoria, next to Babelehi Industrial Area. Born 26 August 1959, a year after H.F. Verwoerd took over as Prime Minister of South Africa. So you can imagine was born at the real height of apartheid. I mean, at the time when H.F. Verwoerd took over, a year after H.F. Verwoerd took over as a prime minister. So I was really born in really very difficult period of our country's history.
And what was it like growing up during apartheid?
It's really very difficult. Unfortunately, I lost my father when I was 2. So by the time I woke up in this world, realizing I was a human being when I was, 5, 6, then I'm told my parents not around. My mother was working in Johannesburg as a domestic worker, coming home once or so a month. And asked, where's my dad? That unfortunately, your dad decided to die when you were 2 years old. I was actually brought up and raised in a child-headed household by my sisters, the elder one, 13 years my senior. So I grew up in that environment. My sisters played a key role in my development.
And against this backdrop, how did you manage to build a massively successful business, especially as a black man during apartheid? And what lessons did you learn from your experiences?
Well, I was really very fortunate. As much as I lost my father at the age of 2, so obviously I don't know him except on photographs. But I had to my grandfather who really molded me, someone who actually lived for me. I meant so much to my grandfather that I actually miss him like I miss my father because I don't know my father, but I know my grandfather from the time I was born, died in 1977 when I was already in Form 4 those days, which is grade 11 today. And my grandfather really held me by the from the actually the day I was born. My grandfather did not take the responsibility of me after my father's passing. He took charge of me from the day I was born, and very proud of me. And the entire community of Haramutsi knew of my arrival on the day I arrived. And since the day he died, I mean, I meant everything to him and instilled in me a sense of taking personal responsibility. For my grandfather, my failure was not an option. So he actually gave me the name Hyman, which was not my official name, which I later changed when I was 14, 15 to Herman, because this Hyman was just too much for me. I used to feel when I was growing up that my grandfather's expectation of me were unreasonable and were too much, and decided from Hyman to call it myself Herman. And that was not my official name. I only obviously made it my official name after the birth of our new democracy, because from the age of 14, 15, when I called myself Herman, new people who knew me afterwards knew me as Herman, not Hyman. But if you go to Haramutsi now, to people of my age, they know me as Hyman. Or younger than me. So in that village, they know me as Hyman. This Hyman thing, they know it's just name I gave myself, because Hyman was just too much for me. It was too overwhelming. So I mean, growing under apartheid was really very difficult. Having at the age of 16 taking a reference book, and not obviously nothing wrong with the taking an identity document, but it was an identity document you had to take as a black man or woman to carry 24 hours a day, that restricted your movement. And with all the restrictions, be in employment, be it where you could live and play and all those things. I remember going into Pretoria City all the time. The police were out there just really stopping you and causing problems for you. And I used to ask myself growing up, say, but goodness, what the hell is going on? What have I done for these people to really harass me like this? But realized as I was growing up that this has got to do with the politicians. People are generally good human beings, because here am I, 28 years into our new democracy, seeing our government, I don't know, the racism between the National Party and ANC. I'm not really sure, because I find it difficult to actually compare, to say life was better under apartheid or under ANC, because my country is right now more divided along racial lines than it was under apartheid. My country, it's actually more unequal to more worse than apartheid, with the mega capital of the world. My personal safety. I mean, if you look at how many people we lose on a daily basis in this country, countries at whole, we lose more people than countries at war. Just a few days ago, I read a report where South Africa, it's actually bypassed Mexico. I used to really have a fear, and those are some of the things that drove me into politics, where because I've always been a student of history, South America, I never thought I would one day live in a country like what you see in South America, with the drug cartels and kidnappings and so forth. That actually South Africa ranks in the top 29 of the most dangerous countries in the world. And yes, I've really accepted I lived under an evil system of apartheid, but today I live in a country actually with a government that I regard as a criminal enterprise.
And so to kind of move back to just apartheid for a second longer, I just was wondering, how did you actually manage to start and promote such a successful business during that time?
Yeah, well, what happened is, my grandfather, he really encouraged me, as much as he did not have the means, but he really encouraged me to take education seriously, because that was one platform for me to get my independence. And my grandfather, as far as I'm aware, I don't think he's seen a day in a classroom. I don't know, but from my memory of him, it wasn't someone with formal education, but he had the wisdom and instill in me, certain values that are still really practiced today. Reading and empowering myself and taking personal responsibility, and managed in 1978 to pass my matric, and 1979 went to the University of the North at Tefluop, to what, over 300 kilometers away from Amanskral. You can imagine there was a University of Pretoria where I could take a train or a bus, go to university every day. Unfortunately, because of the apartheid laws, the only university I could go to was University of the North. And I was lucky the Catholic Church and my brother-in-law assisted me with my to really pay for my university studies. The church paid 50%, and my brother-in-law managed to get me a loan with Barclays Bank at the time, 50%. So that's how I ended up at university in 1979. Second year of my studies, one morning, the university surrounded by the army because we had some protest asking for the release of some of our colleagues. And 6 o'clock, the army they are surrounded the campus, and we were requested to all leave by 12 o'clock. And that unfortunately became the end of my political dream of one day becoming a political scientist. Because when a month or so when they called us back, I decided I'm not going back there. It's going to be a waste of time, because I was at the time very angry young black the guy, where I did not see any way out of actually going out there to physically fight the apartheid regime. At the time, to my peers, every black youth at the time wanted to leave the country for military training and get the Russians to give us AK-47 sevens and come and cause havoc. But I look back in reflection on my life. God has always had a plan for me, because at the time you needed strong political connections to get you out of the country. And I was one of those, and actually I can proudly say lucky ones, that I never had good context to get me out of the country, because you can imagine if I had left the country, I would be part of this criminal syndicate. I would be a corrupt politician. So God shielded me away from exposure to this criminality, and started work. I worked for a salary 30 months in my life, two companies. Worked for Spa Pretoria in Pretoria for 7 months as a dispatch clerk, and 23 months for Motani Industries, furniture manufacturing industry. And during that time, then I reached 22 years, and I realized, I remembered my grandfather's ways to say, Herman, you are getting old, 22, you're missing out. Chances of leaving the country are no longer possible, and you are not going to live the rest of your life like everybody else, working for someone and other people determining your life. That's when I decided to go into business. But then the apartheid government, PW Botha, said you can't go into business as a black man. It was not allowed. And I said, Mr. PW Botha, I'm afraid you can control others, not Herman Mashaba. I'm going to do it anyway. And before going into business, because I don't come from a family business, then decided I'm going to become a commission sales rep, be a trader. That being a trader, I needed to buy a car. But before buying a car, God also gave me the wisdom to stabilize my life, looking at how my grandfather had one wife, stable family until his death. My mother died a few years before him. And I decided, you know what, let me stabilize my life. Something I never thought. I mean, growing up in those turbulent times, getting a wife was really completely foreign to me. It was not something that I thought I would do. But for some reason, just really God gave me the wisdom to stabilize my life. And got married, legally married on the 3rd of March, 1982. Everything else is history. My wife has played that key role on stabilizing my life. And 2 months after getting married, bought a car. Uh, um, then started being a trader. The first job I tried was insurance, selling insurance on a commission basis. 2 months later, realized this is not on, and started selling linen, crockery, fire detection system. 1983, came across a company in Johannesburg in Malvern East, had a brand called Supercare. What happened in 82 when I had the wedding, I actually for the first time perm my hair. And when I had an opportunity to sell this product, I realized here's a golden opportunity. So I sold for this company for 19 months, and during that period, I became the top sales person, earning 3,500, 4,000 rands a month. I mean, 83, 84, earning that kind of money as a black man was serious matter. And in the 19 months with Supercell, I felt vulnerable, and also the wisdom to succeed came to me to say, you know what, here's an industry that is going to be there forever. Why don't you actually go out there, not do it for someone else, go and do it for yourself? But then I did not really have the technical know-how. I had to take a chance. I'm a gambler in life. I'm a risk taker. Approached Johan Krill, who was the African, a guy who was a production manager working, and I got to know what he was earning, 1,600 rands a month, which obviously for whites was a good salary, was a senior position. And I said to Johan, you know what, you can see I'm earning more than to what you earn, and you're making money for someone else. Joseph and I can sell this stuff and you can make it. Why don't we go and make it ourselves? And he says, but Herman, I like the idea, but I don't have the money, luckily. I said, you leave that to Joseph and I. Approached a businessman in Mabopane called Walter Dube with our plan to say, Mr. Dube, we need some funds. We found a legal machine to print money. Um, and we presented the plan to him, and we needed 30,000 rands. Everything else is history. January of 1985, we started the product, and the first invoice made on the 14th of February with a 30,000 rands loan, which was the most expensive funding model any entrepreneur can ever get. Because Walter and Uncle Ness, the two guys who gave us the money, they didn't know us. I mean, they were people more than double my age. And they decided to, you know what, the guys, we like what you are saying. You're still youngsters. We're happy to give you this money to gamble. 30,000 rands was a lot of money. And prime in South Africa at the time was 21%. So they said, look, we'll give you the money, but we want the prime plus 10%. And they wanted 25% of the share in the business. But because we had no choice, and they were lovely people, we said, okay, fine, we'll take you on. They gave us 3 years to repay them, paid them back in 7 months. Uh, instead of three, I paid them back their money in 7 months. And by 1990, when F.W. de Klerk released political prisoners, you remember the 2nd of February 1990, that big announcement by F.W. de Klerk. I mean, I'm sure that's long before you were born. I was already at the time having my own factory, over 6,000 square meters, with state-of-the-art manufacturing, listed with all the major retailers in the country, and selling products not only in South Africa, in Southern Africa. So, that's briefly the story of my life. So, in terms of my interpret, a devout capitalist. I love that system because it's a system that has given me this privilege that I've enjoyed over the last 40 years. The freedom I'm enjoyed is not the one that is in our constitution. The capitalist system has given me the financial freedom to really be able to be an independent person.
And so I'm going to take us forward to the next one of the next big gambles in your life, in which you decide to really join the political fray and run as the mayoral candidate for Johannesburg for the DA. And I was wondering, so what did your time as the mayor of Johannesburg teach you?
Well, I knew our system was bad. I mean, if I look at growing up under apartheid, under the homeland system in Buputatswana, building Babelegi industrial area, Garankua industrial area, where I started Black Like Me in 1985. Uh, I, I saw our country developing, the kind of trains running, buses, our personal safety there. But obviously, I think discriminated against. But overall, we were in a functional, developing country. The country was developing. And 1994, voted for Nelson Mandela. 1999, I voted for Thabo Mbeki. And during Thabo Mbeki's era, and I think that's when I started realizing some cracks and things that I did not really appreciate. And that's when, by the time Thabo Mbeki went for a second term, I was one of those South Africans that did not vote for him. But I voted, and I voted for the DA because the policies that Thabo Mbeki was pursuing, the Zimbabwean the issue, people who were dying of HIV and AIDS, the Trapada. What I did not like most was the dominance of the communist and the COSATU in government issues, destroying our education, destroying jobs. That's why we sit with one of the highest sustainable jobs in the country. His policy in terms of international relations. Remember when Thabo Mbeki took over power, he came out with the term the African Renaissance, the rebirth of Africa. To hold one another accountable as African leaders. But when it came to this evil leader called Mugabe started violating the rights of Zimbabweans, people of Zimbabwe, Thabo Mbeki was there to apply what he called quiet diplomacy, something that I didn't take kindly to it, and really lost hope. Realized that these people are going to really destroy our country, and here is it. We are almost on the verge of collapse.
And so you resigned from the mayoral office in 2019. And so why did you decide to resign at that point?
Well, very unfortunate, really very hateful. It's one of the pains of my life, and I'm lucky that Michael Buman, who was serving as my chief of staff, actually has captured my term as a mayor in a book called "Accidental Mayor." Captured it so succinctly, and really so appreciative of this because I think looking at the difficult environment I was put under to run a multi-party government, relying even on the EFF to really be able to pass my budget and serve a stable coalition government, it's actually quite sad for me when I had to resign and share with South Africans about how DA was the most difficult partner. They used to offend me about really accusing me of providing services to people who don't pay taxes and then are not DA voters. And this for me was such an insult, and requested them on numerous occasions at FedEx level for protection with some of my fellow caucus members to say, when you read your government, you are not government to serve only those who voted for you. We are in the most unequal society in the world. We've been under ANC government at the time, 22 years. The damage that ANC had caused, we needed to really correct it. As much as I'm a devout capitalist, but I believe in social justice. I hate the poor environment. I come from there. And the people who are poor in our country are not poor because of any other thing than political leadership. The apartheid government made the black people poor. ANC government made them even poorer and actually deprived them of education, divided us along racial, ethnic, and everything. So, for me, when I was really wanting to work towards normalizing us as society, DA was against this. And obviously, the final nail came when it came to my attention that the DA leadership was negotiating, DA leadership was negotiating with the ANC to remove me, come out with a motion of no confidence, because as far as they are concerned, I'm a cheeky black, and obviously found the ready ANC happy to welcome this move from the DA, because at the time I was pursuing 35 billion rands of fraud and corruption, pursuing the arrest of senior ANC officials. Some of them are in the current government and parliament. So when DA made these advances to them, they found that, you know what, this would work. And luckily, when people plan malicious things, God brings things to my attention. So I got to know about this plan while it was still being hashed. And I called Musi, my money, to my house, and I said, Musi, are you aware there are meetings underway to remove me? And you are going to be the next ones, obviously, they can remove me. And I said to Musi, you know what? As you are aware, being the mayor is the last job in the world I want. I'm not going to be pushed by anyone. So I'm announcing that in the event that this right wing elements take over DA, I'm out, because I will not want to be associated with such characters. So I said I will wait until DA elects these people. And it then so happened that they were elected on the 20th of October, and 21st I make to call the press conference. By then, I'd already made an announcement, because when I informed Musi about this, I said, Musi said, no, he's going to investigate and do something. A week passed and Musi wasn't doing anything. That's Musi. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to let Musi determine my life and allow myself to be pushed. So I then issued a press statement a few weeks before that Federal Council to elect Helen Zille as the chairperson of the DA. That if this right-wing people come back into DA, I'm out. So I'm happy to stick around until your whatever Congress where you're going to have elections. And it so happened that 20th of October, Helen Zille was elected as the chairperson of FedEx, and the following day, I resigned. And probably they thought my threats were empty, you know. And I'm not that kind of person. If I make a commitment, I do everything possible. Not that I don't change my mind, but I've got to have a good reason to change my mind. But on this one, it was not negotiable.
And so you obviously weren't done though with politics, because the next move was the People's Dialogue, and then it was time for action. And so I'm wondering, why did you decide to found Action, and what are the core ideological beliefs of Action SA upon which it was founded?
Well, interestingly, to be honest with you, I did not realize that that really made an impact to residents of Johannesburg and the entire South Africa, because as soon as I made an announcement of my resignation, you can check in all your mediums. literally the entire country stood up to say, Herman, please form your own political parties. Others obviously tried to get me to not resign, including Musi. And I said, guys, so please don't even to go there. And now realizing South Africans are calling me to start my own political party, because now my biggest challenge was now 2021 local government elections around the corner. Now, without DA, that basically means I have no idea who I'm going to vote for. Like, that's why you see South Africans today, even now, we've got a big percentage of people staying away because they are in that environment that they have no one that they trust. So I said to myself, what do I do? Are these real people? So I then obviously to conceive the idea of starting an engagement of South Africans to see if these people who are calling radio stations, writing articles in the paper, phoning me, are these real people? So I needed to run a scientific analysis to see if these are real people. And my condition was that if I get less than 500,000 people giving me an endorsement, I won't proceed. But anything over 500,000, it'll be a nice sample to start a political party. And but then I had to make sure that I run this as quickly as possible, because in the event I get the mandate to start a political party, I needed to prepare for the 2021 local government elections. So that's why we launched Action SA on the the People's Dialogue on the 6th of December, to run until end of Feb. To my surprise, honestly, serious surprise, 2.4 million South Africans gave me the mandate, scientific mandate. 2.5 times the number that I anticipated. So therefore, I had no option than to start the political party. But secondly, what was more important, and this is really where it becomes actually quite fundamental for me, because these were conditions which were not negotiable with this 2.4 million South Africans. I said we have to then commit on this core values. The first core value is that we all agree we need to start a non-racial political party. So we stand for non-racialism. Racial polarization, it's a dangerous thing. I lived under apartheid. I lived under ANC, the discriminatory laws. I'm tired. I'm heartful, basically. I want to live in a normal society where South Africans must be judged on their character, not on the color of skin or gender. So I said I need a non-racial political party. We must then commit on free market economy, where a government must play as minimal role as possible. Unions must know that they will never have a veto right on our economic policies. We as much as I need a non-racial South Africa, and I need to run a free market economy. What also important for me was social justice. We can't live in a country where so many of our fellow South Africans, 54% of our people live under poverty. We've got to really address this question of inequality, and we've got to be deliberate. It can't be something that happens by chance, what the DA wanted. No, we have to drive to make sure that we create opportunities so that 30 years down the line, we must have the majority of our country, men and women, to be in the middle class category. Believe in the rule of law. I don't want to live in a country where people can steal and loot the country with impunity. We need to bring back the scorpions. I keep telling people lately that I want to live in a country where, once we remove the ANC out of power in 2024, we must bring the Minister of Law and Order, not the Minister of Police. We need law and order in this country. We don't need the Minister of Police. We need Minister of Law and Order. We need to do away. I'm not a believer on name changing, but one aspect I'm saying to South Africa, we need to change immediately once we remove ANC from power. Our correctional services, we've got to turn them into prisons, not the correctional services. so that people know when you violate the rights of law-abiding citizens of the country, you're going to pay a price. So avoid going to jail because you are going to prison. You are not going to correctional services. We've got no time to think about correcting people who violated the rights of law-abiding citizens. Let us to really discourage people from actually even breaking the law. So I believe in the rule of law. This whole issue of open borders, when we have the constitution of the Republic of South Africa that spells out immigration so eloquently that, people of South Africa, like how this country was built. South Africa was built at the back of migrants, and we need to encourage people of the world. They must come here into South Africa, whether you come from Holland or you come from Zimbabwe or Nigeria or Mexico. Come here, but come here legally. And when you're in South Africa, please respect our laws. And one thing for sure, for those who are calling for a borderless South Africa, I'm saying to them, please, South Africa will not really, we are not going to give away our sovereignty as a country. We need to really protect this country at all costs. And I think right now, with all the challenges that we are facing, I think please let people leave us alone for now. We are happy to have relations with all the countries in the world, but people must respect our sovereignty. We believe in quality education. That if I look at what the union SATU and COSATU have done to our education, as you are aware, 80% of our public schools in this country are dysfunctional. It is my dream to see the kids in Soweto, where today schools are closing, and the schools here in Sandton, where I live, kids have to leave Soweto. Family members have to leave Soweto 4 in the morning to come to school in Sandton or Randburg when schools in Soweto are closing because they are dysfunctional. SATU, it's responsible for running of our schools. We are saying no. South Africa needs one Department of Education, and the principals of schools must be appointed by us as government. We must bring back school inspectors. We must encourage teachers from here in Sandton go and teach in Soweto. The kids in Soweto, our youth in Soweto are looking for good quality education. Because once you don't have race-based legislation, then any South African can work and be deployed anywhere because you are not discriminated against what the current ANC government is doing. And what for me it's important, we need to bring God back into our country because this communist criminal syndicate called ANC, they've taken God out of our society. I grew up in an environment where, from literally birth, we go to church every Sunday. Um, when I started school in 1966, every morning before you go to class, you go to assembly. You have a 10-15 minutes prayer session. You know that I believe it's very more than important. It's not important. We need God back, and 97% of South Africans are God believing. Whether the Christians like myself, or you're a Muslim, or a Jew, or a Hindu, all of us we believe in God. And I cannot see how we must allow 2 or 3% of atheists to say that we must not bring God into schools. I think for me, this is not negotiable. I live in a free society. I cannot understand why my rights, if 97% of South Africans' rights must be trampled upon by 2 or 3% of atheists. And I'm not against people not believing in God. It's their right not to, but they must not impose their system on me. So the kids where families believe that they don't want their children to know about God, they're most welcome. They can go to class. We'll find them there. We are not going to force them. But I think for all the religions, as I say, we must learn to coexist because if we can't coexist and as blacks and white people, there's no reason why we cannot coexist as Christians, Muslims, Jews, and whatever. We must learn to coexist because these are things that you cannot undo. These are God created the things. For me, that's really what I believe in. And lastly, believe in ethical leadership. When you join ActionSA, you must understand where our political party is about saving society. It's not about your stomach. It's about saving society. That, yes, understand, I might be saying this easy because I come from a privileged position over the last 40 years of my life, but I know what poverty means and I know what it means to really save society. This is a brutal job that we are doing. To be a politician, if you're committed to public service, it's a brutal job. But one thing that I believe is that once you can enter politics to serve society, society will look after you. Don't really come into politics for your own stomach, because then you are coming into politics for the wrong reasons. That's just in brief what we as Action SA stands for. That's why if you look at our constitution, we have no tolerance for stomach politics.
So to kind of outline that, then I want to bring kind of these values into some of the applicable policy areas. So you've outlined the fact that you're very much in favor of free market economies and social justice, and I think we can explore those two areas together. So how does Action SA see a free market economy being balanced with social justice? Obviously, because there is somewhat of a tension there if you let people, trade and people excel at the things that they excel at. Some people excel more than others, and there are always people left behind. So how does Action SA then how would Action SA balance these two forces together?
There's nothing to balance, Gabriel. The mistake any society can make is to determine the outcome. Uh, what I think it's important is for government to create an equal opportunities, but the outcome you can't determine. I can give you an example of my brother who died, may his soul rest in peace, in a car accident in 1988. We come from the same family, same parents. My brother took a total different direction than I did. He completed his standard six, was the best student in that region. They had some kind of system. He was the top student, passing standard six, but he refused to go to Form 1 and pursue education. Ran away to Joburg, and so Pretoria wanted to work like others. At the time, you can imagine my father was still alive. Um, so he took a totally different direction. Whereas in my particular case, lost my father at the age of 2, my mother working as a domestic worker, brought up in a child-headed household. So my brother and I, coming from the same parents. So if anyone would have expected or does expect to get the same outcome, you cannot really get the same outcome. What we need as government is to create equal opportunities, because I've been a businessman and I've been in business for close to 40 years. I've never come across any businessman who go out there to exploit others. Businessmen they go into business to make money and maximize profit. It's up to you to exploit that situation. I can give a practical example of Herman Mashaba. In 1980, when I started working, late 80, when I decided not to go back to school, um, I exploited Spa. Spa, my first job, I was earning 175 rands. But one thing I was thankful. I decided, you know what? The only way to succeed in life is to get experience. And you know what? I'm not going to allow Spa to exploit me. I'm going to exploit Spa. So these guys are going to pay me to give me the experience. They employed me as a dispatch clerk, but I can tell you, I will come in, do my work quickly on dispatch whilst all the trucks are gone, prepare the load for the following day, and I'll always be inquisitive to go and help others, never to let myself idle. I've never been the one to look for a job description. Yeah, I was empowering myself. That is why when 7 months later, when I gave them my resignation letter, they wanted to match Motani's offer. And I said, no, Mr. Spy, it doesn't work like that. If you valued me, why want to offer me a salary increase and match? I mean, at the time, I was earning 175, and the next salary I was getting from Motani was 350, a big jump. And they wanted to meet this, but I said, but if you valued me, so I said, no, thanks very much. I'm moving on. It's not about you. It's about Herman Mashaba. I wasn't doing all this for Spa. I exploited Spa, and I did exactly the same thing with Motani Industries. And that's something, a message I'm sending to the youth all over the world. They must avoid and be scared of communists who are preaching this equality, because there's nothing like that in real life. What you need a government that creates equal opportunities. The role of government is to ensure that once you promise to pay me 175 rands a month, then you must pay me 175 rands a month. And in the event you don't pay me, then I can take you to the Department of Labor for a breach of contract. And also make sure that the health and safety measures are respected. But how much people must be paid, honestly, I don't want to live in a government like that, because once you can have a government like right now with President Cyril Ramaphosa calling for minimum wage. Minimum wage, it's an evil system that oppresses people, because unions are there to oppress people. Because once you're a union member, you can never grow. You are at the mercy of unions. If you want people to really develop, it's up to them to really make themselves indispensable. So I think these two, social justice, that's when, as government, allow people to the private sector to go and make billions. They put money in the banks. They don't have to put the money under mattresses. Let them run businesses in a legal fashion, and so that we can tax them and tax them fairly. And when we receive taxes from society, make sure that there's no corruption, there's no one stealing that money. Go and build schools in Soweto, in Haramutsi, go and build infrastructure, go and build modern public transport system, so that poor people can really be able to travel and so forth. Make sure that you invest in policing, that you people are safe in your country. In that way, you will see the development of people. So it's just really propaganda by communists to tell us a capitalist system, it's an exploitative system. What is actually more dangerous is a communist socialist system, because it exploits people. It wants to keep people poor, uneducated, so that they must actually believe in government. I'll call upon people to say no. Don't depend on government. Do things for yourself, but demand government to create a fair and equal system for everyone. If you decide to be an entrepreneur, if you decide to be a pastor, if you decide to be a Molana, you decide to be a judge, it's up to you. It's not that the government should not really decide for you what you must eventually become.
Mm. I would say I would agree with that. And so to bring this then, so 2024 Action SA is given the opportunity to lead the country. What are some of the 3 or 4 biggest problems that you tackle straight away in the first 100 days, and what are you doing?
Well, the first 100 days, we need to do to ensure that we scrap all race-based legislation out of our statutory books. We need to bring back the scorpions to make sure that we have an independent the National Prosecuting Authority. Um, as far as I'm concerned, the head of the scorpions, or whatever name we will call it, this independent body, if I can have my way, we must take the right of the president to be the one appointing the head of the scorpions. or the head of the NPA. We must find a system where these units must be totally independent of political interference. We must focus on creation of a professional public service. So we must, as a matter of urgency, do skills audit of all public servants to ensure that people are in positions not because of which contacts they have, but what they know, so that you allow all South Africans an opportunity to really work for the public service. Um, we've got to ensure that already we've started the process to identify all these abandoned factories in Namanskral, Harankua, and all over the country. We need these factories, give them to the private sector for nothing, and give them tax breaks to reopen these factories to really employ our people, because we've got an emergency right now with the highest sustainable unemployment rate in the world.
And what are you going to do to fix the massive problem that we have with electricity provision around the country?
Oh, well, I think we put in the right people to run ESCOM, right, put the right people to run Transnet, put the right people to run SABC. Airlines, I can tell you, give SA Airways to anyone who wants it. SA Airways, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see why as a country will need an airline. Definitely, we need the brand to give it to someone who can commit to really saving this airline the best way possible. But give it away for literally nothing. Even if it honestly for me, even if I've got to pay someone to take it away from us as government, I will pay to put it on tender, and the people must give you proposal and give it to anyone. But as government, we don't need an airline. But one thing for sure, we need ESCOM. But while we have ESCOM, we must allow private energy producers to compete with ESCOM. If ESCOM can survive in that environment, so it be. But we need to put in the right engineers to go and revive that entity. But at the same time, allow private sector participation in the energy sector.
And so I want to ask you about a question about your, I think it was the eighth core value of ActionSA, ethical leadership. Um, so how do you go about ensuring that ActionSA members stay accountable and stay in service to the public?
Well, let me give you an example of what we did 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, the city of Johannesburg, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm not sure if our coalition arrangement is going to succeed in Johannesburg, because ANC engineered the collapse of our coalition arrangement in Johannesburg, buying of councillors. And I guess and believe that one of our councillors was a victim to this, because one of our councillors at this very important council meeting never showed up, didn't show up, and tried everything possible to get hold of him on that day. His phone was off, went to his house, and people, our teams could hear that there's someone in the house, but no one answered. So the following morning, contacted one of our guys that he had a heart attack. And we then wrote to him. It was on a Thursday morning. We wrote to him, giving him Friday 5 p.m. To give us a medical record. Friday came, 5 o'clock, nothing came. 6 o'clock, we wrote a letter to him, giving until 6 o'clock Sunday to tell us why we must not obviously fire him. 6 o'clock came on Sunday, called the Senate meeting, 7 o'clock, took a decision, we fired the guy. That just really shows you, and our constitution allows us to do this. And we move, and can give you more and more of examples. I think ever since we started ActionSA, after participation in local government elections, we had some rogue elements that thought they had the right to be councillors, even when we had our list, and they thought they worked harder than the people who were on the list. And once they started coming out with such behavior, we immediately got rid of them. We act very fast, and we made sure that our constitution allows us to get rid of people coming out with ANC tendencies.
Mm. And so you will just, would you say that you just can keep to continue this trend of aggressively pursuing people when they step out of line to keep the members accountable as the party grows in size?
Yeah, well, but the thing is what you do. It's obviously education. It's important. It's like when I run to my cosmetic business from day one. You train people because you don't want to lose them. But obviously, if people step out of line on cases that would justify immediate dismissal, don't really think twice about it. To get rid of them. But there are cases where, I mean, people, we all make mistakes. If there's one person who makes mistake in life, it's me. But I don't make deliberate mistakes. My grandfather taught me to really be an ethical leader, to be an ethical person, not a leader, be an ethical person. So if someone deliberately tries to be dishonest with us, you are out. We don't. I think we don't really play games, and we are not going to apologize to anyone about it. There's only way I believe we can build an ethical society over time. Because those that are committed to our project, we keep training them, we keep emphasizing them because we don't want to lose anyone. But if we have to really lose you, we will lose you.
So I'm going to move to some of the criticisms that people tend to lobby against Action SA, and one of the ones that I'm very interested to hear your take on is what is that Action SA and a lot of these and a lot of the opposition parties that kind of splinter off with a similar ish docket of and policy agenda to the DA. People claim that you then split the DA vote as opposed to going after the ANC vote. What would you say as a response to that? Do you think that Action SA is splitting the DA vote, or are you going, or how are you going after disgruntled ANC voters?
I think, Gabriel, these are people who are scared of Action SA, firstly. These are people who don't believe in democracy. If they must do self-reflection and study the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The Constitution of South Africa does not determine how many political parties must be in the running. So these are people who don't believe in democracy in the first place, and they've got to self-reflect, do self-reflection. Action SA is not a splinter group of the DA. The DA and I, we water under the bridge. I'll never be a member of DA, I mean, vote for the DA any longer. DA is part of my history. So I think Action SA has got the right, as enshrined in the constitution of this country, to be a political party as a standalone with our own policies. So we are not going to really concern ourselves with people who don't really believe in democracy and sway us and think that they can influence us to belong to their cause when we don't know what their agenda is.
So what distinguishes then the Action SA from a party like the DA, or from a party maybe even like the VF Plus, who do also focus on kind of non-racialism and free market economy? What is it that Action SA brings to the table that's different to these parties?
I think, Gabriel, it will be an insult to South Africans, to anybody to say that DA believes in non-racial South Africa. I mean, honestly, it will be someone, you'll be insulting South Africans. DA does not really believe in a non-racial society that when I joined them, I thought there's enough evidence to that effect. So the DNI to completely different. So Action SA, when we stand for a non-racial South Africa, we really mean it. Action SA and DA, Action SA believe in social justice. We believe that as government we've got a responsibility not only to people who voted for us. We vote. We also believe once we're in government, we must serve all communities. DA has got a track record, including my 3 years as a mayor, fighting literally every day with the DA not wanting me to provide services to poor communities. So I think there's a huge difference. And the Freedom Front Plus, I think their cause is completely different to me. They are focusing on the African community. That is their focus. And for us, as ActionSA, we focus on any speaking South African. We don't care what language you speak or what color, what gender you are. Whereas Freedom Front Plus, its focus is on the African nation, and they don't apologize to anyone about it. And it's their right. It's their constitutional right to do that. So there's no way that anyone would compare ActionSA to Freedom Front Plus, because ActionSA focuses on all South Africans. We don't care what language you speak or what color you are, or race or gender.
And so, how is ActionSA going about convincing ANC voters or ex-ANC voters, and specifically the people that you talked about earlier that have stayed away from the polls, that they feel that there is no home for them in the current political arena in South Africa? How do you go about convincing people that we need to move away from the ANC, and that ActionSA is actually the home for them?
Well, people don't only have to move from the ANC; they must move from the DA and all other parties and join ActionSA. So when we approach voters, we don't say we're looking for ANC or whatever. We're looking for voters, South African voters, because South African voters don't belong to any political party, including ActionSA. People are individuals and they've got a right. So we don't approach them on the basis of being ANC or DA members. We are looking for South Africans to embrace this democracy, and we do that by encouraging them to vote, by giving them. Again, I've taken you through our core values. Those are the core values we sell to our South African people. And luckily, the 3 years as a mayor of Johannesburg are demonstrated that. That's why it's easy for people to actually believe me. That's why in the local government elections we made history, where we're the first political party in the history of this country where our support base in all communities is the same. We received the same support base from all communities in the 6 metros. I'm sorry, municipalities where we contested. So we're not a black party, we're not a white party, we're a party for South Africans, and we've going to the IEC website, look at ActionSA support here in Sandton, in Randburg, in Soweto, in Mamelodi, in Alexander, in Waterkloof. You will see the support that ActionSA received. We're the only political party in the history of this country. Not even Nelson Mandela received a kind of diverse electoral support, and we're proud about it.
But why I focus on the ANC is because, as you pointed out earlier, you have a very strong opinion against the ANC, and the problem is that from my perception, is that it is quite a task, I would say, to convince ANC voters or ex-ANC voters that you suddenly need to switch tracks, kind of wholesale ideologically, because you have to then reject a lot of the tenets that the ANC and the tripartite alliance have put forward, and so do you think that that there is an issue, that you do have an issue with convincing people that what the ANC has been selling to you has been wrong this whole time, or do you think that the strength of your message is enough to convince people that it's time that ActionSA is the place for them, a new home.
Gabriel, I don't have to give you an academic spin. Please just have a look at our electoral support um, in where we contested in the municipalities. With the evidence is there. We received almost same support. No political party since 1994 has ever received the kind of support in Soweto, in Alexander, and so forth. The ANC used to dominate. Never thought they will ever anyone will ever drop them below the 50%. We did first time around coming out with just under 22% in Soweto, beating the EFF, which has been around for over 10 years with 14%. We came out with 22%. Then look into the suburbs. The DA used to really have a free ride. They know the party's over, coming out with 20% of the suburban that support. So the party's over for the DA. The party's over for the ANC to think that the suburban the market is theirs. ANC can forget about thinking that the black support is theirs. No, there's a new kid on the block that is actually winning the hearts and minds of all South Africans because of our messaging and what we stand for. My grandfather taught me, make sure that you listen to people, but believe what they do than what they say. And I have proven beyond any reasonable doubt what I promised to deliver, I deliver. And that's why people have got confidence in ActionSA, all South Africans.
And so I now want to shift us to the question of coalition governance come 2024, because from all of the looks of it, it looks like 2024, the ANC it will be the first time since democracy the ANC slips into minority party position. And so the first question I have for you is, you've now had experience as the mayor of Joburg in your time in the DA, and now in a coalition governance as ActionSA. What have you learned about coalition governance in South Africa from your various experiences in coalitions?
Well, one thing that I've learned in coalition arrangement since 2016 and now when we facilitated and forced the DA to be in government in the three metros in Gauteng, that ActionSA has to work hard to emerge as the second biggest political party so that in the event we take ANC out, the coalition arrangements must be led by us because us as ActionSA, when we lead a coalition, we believe in consultation, we believe in respect for other parties. And what I've learned over just under a year with, 3 years with DA as their mayoral candidate, their arrogance, and they are still repeating this in this metros. They play a game as if they've got a 2/3 majority. Whereas, look at Joburg, they're sitting at 23%. When I was the mayor, we had 38%. They are sitting today at 23%. But I can tell you, going to negotiations with the DA, they pretend and play the, not pretend, they actually play the game as if they've got a 2/3 majority. So I think it would really be bad for South Africa to have the DA. They've proven beyond any reasonable doubt that they're a bad partner to lead the coalition arrangement. But we need them. But I think we are confident as ActionSA we will emerge bigger than the DA, and we will respect them. And we'll respect them like we'll respect everybody else. We are not going to be the party because we are bigger than DA, then we must look down upon anyone. We will respect everyone who's obviously is prepared to go into a coalition with us.
And so I want to ask, you've been very critical of the ANC. Is there any chance in 2024, if they offer you cabinet positions or a various number of things, is there any chance that you would join a coalition with the ANC in 2024?
I've made it clear that I think ActionSA cannot really go into a coalition with the ANC because I think how do you deal with the question of corruption under the ANC? I think it's almost impossible. We are happy to work with the other parties as long as it's not the ANC. I cannot see what ANC can offer us that would make South Africa a better place.
I can just move then also just to the last one, which is for you to briefly explain why people should vote for Action SA. Should we do that question to end it?
Yeah, well, I think why people should vote for Action SA. I think if people have really followed our discussion, outline our core values, what we stand for. If they believe in those core values, that's good enough reason to trust us that we live up to those core values that I have already outlined.
And so, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Mr. Mashaba. You are certainly someone who I think has for every reason, all the right reasons, caused a stir in the political scene, and I'm very excited to see what happens come 2024 with Action SA, because I certainly believe that this country needs some change, and it's very good to see people who are bringing the fire and the necessary energy to try and to provide that change. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity and sorry to cut you off. I would still really, if I had a chance to engage you even further, but unfortunately, I'd already committed myself for another engagement at 3:30. So I mean at 4:30. So yeah, but thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity, and please in future, if you need to engage any further, I'm happy we can make other arrangements.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Mashaba, and have a great day.
Thank you so much and all of the best. Thank you.
Thank you.